G'day all and welcome back to the Freo Faithful podcast, episode 20. And as you might be able to tell, the man to my right is not Andrew Cox. It is in fact Zach Ferguson, hands and heels, however you know him. He's a big Fremantle fan and he's here to chat about our tough loss on the weekend. Talking of episode 20, who are your favourite number 20s that have played for the Fremantle Football Club?
There's two obvious choices in Patrick Voss and Matt Taberner, but I'm not a recency biased kind of guy, so I'm going to have to go Matt Taberner, mate. Just the spearhead of our forward line for many years, an absolute champion of the game, and he's a champion coach too nowadays, I hear as well. So easily Matt Taberner for me.
Yeah, my sources tell me Josh Tracy's got some posters up on his wall of Matt Taberner.
I actually
the
heard
original spearhead.
Well. I think Matthew Pavlich actually had them as well, not just the up and comers. Yeah.
I think he does, yeah. Matt Taberner, legend of the club. However, I think we moved on to bigger and better things, but the weekend didn't suggest so. We went down to the Sydney Swans by 11 points. It was a game which, you can sort of tell, we've spoken about a lot this season, how from the start, you can sort of tell if Freo are on or not. And we just didn't come out of the gates in the right way. And we were sort of playing catch up right from the get-go, and it's what sort of lost us the game. We got it on our terms in the fourth quarter for periods, but it's not enough when you're playing a good team like Sydney, who've got guys like Callum Mills, Errol Golden back in the side. They were basically a top 8 team we were playing on the weekend, despite their ladder position, and we gave them the head start that wasn't ideal. What did you make of the game on Sunday, Zach?
Well, I do agree with you. You could tell literally from the start, as you know, centre clearance is where you start games, and they won the first one, and they went on to win the next 9 of them in a row, which suggested how slow we did start. I believe in the first half, they scored 48 points from clearance. So, the game starts at the clearance, and we got dominated well and truly. And look, I thought we did okay to fight back. I feel like we should have lost by more, to be honest. But yeah, we started the game poorly, and look, we got better. But I think the writing was on the wall very early, as you suggested.
Yeah, it was the second worst clearance differential in our history, or on record. I'm not sure when they started recording those stats. First time in our history we've gone scoreless from clearance up until 3/4 time. There were all sorts of records we don't want to be getting broken on Sunday. And there were some key personnel issues, none more than Caleb Serong. He was completely shut out of the game by James Jordan, and it was a tag we sort of foreseed coming. But for some reason, this bloke is just getting shut out of games weekly. And it's sort of the formula to stop Freo.
Yeah. Oh, mate, yeah. James Jordan, full credit. He's probably, I put him and Windhager probably in the top tier of taggers in the AFL. He's very good at tagging Jordan. I think he got Serong. I think he kept him to under 20 disposals when they beat us at Optus early in the season as well, which I think that was the end of Serong's 20+ streak, I think I'm correct in saying that.
Yeah, it was.
Serong has been beaten a couple of times this year, but it looks like James Jordan seriously knows what he's doing, how to beat Serong. And I think if you beat Serong, you're halfway to beating Fremantle, especially at the clearance battle, it seems, which is the big part of our game. So, yeah, I think Serong, look, I'm not going to go at him because he's a champion of our team, but he had his colours lowered well and truly. But he wasn't alone in the midfield, I thought, to be honest, this week. But, yeah, he was beaten.
Considering he's sort of like the spearhead of our midfield in a way, what do you think the evolution or the next evolution is in his game? Because you don't see guys like Dacos or Bont getting shut out as often as Caleb Serong does. Like, they can get shut out of games by good taggers like Jordan or Windhager. But for some reason, every time you put a body on Caleb Serong, it seems like it's just very, very easy to get under his skin. Does the team need to do better, or was this sort of a coaching thing that we got wrong?
Well, a couple of weeks ago, Bontempelli was tagged by Windhager, and you saw the Bont he basically stepped out of the way at contests. He made it basically a 2-on-2 or 3v3 at contests and clearances. Basically, he's got out the way and sacrificed his own game for the team's benefit. Which I'm not going to go at Strong saying he's selfish or anything, but maybe sort of tactics like that could work. I mean, coaching wise, you say when Dacos is being tagged, and again the Bont, they get moved to the wing, half forward, half back. I know Strong didn't have a lot of CBAs, but I feel like one way to try break a tag is to maybe move him out of the centre bounce. We've got plenty of options to go in there, but look, it's hard to say what he can do personally because I don't want to be too critical on him. But, look at players like Bontempelli and Dacos who break tags. And one thing that stands out to me is the way sometimes they sacrifice their own game just to try to get their teammates involved more. But, I have hope that he will find a way to fix it. And maybe some of it comes down to coaching as well, ways helping break him, but a lot of responsibility does go down to Serong himself, I guess.
Yeah, he had no support in terms of the defensive side of his game on the weekend. Basically, how our midfield was set up, it was just giving Sydney so much room at the front of the clearance. And I remember round 2, one of the big points made to stop Sydney was stopping the run of Heaney and Warner.
Yeah.
And yet again, we got caught on the exact same thing. They just had so much run out of the front of the clearance and so much run all over the ground. We played the ground terribly. Like even that goal Nick Blakey kicked where, you know, he didn't even have to take a bounce from the center square or from the edge of the center square to the next 50. You know, it's such a small ground and we just didn't play it very well whatsoever. And guys like Caleb Serong and just that midfield mix as a whole really didn't help. And it's just becoming a theme in Serong's game. It's been 4 or 5 times now this season alone where he's just been completely shut out. James Jordan has done it twice now this year. Winhager did it in round 8. Hugo Garcia last week. And even the Richmond game in gather round, he played okay, but Tim Taranto had him visibly pissed off. So it's an odd one with Serong, and I'm not sure where to go just in terms of his future.
Look, yeah, I agree with you. And even like I was listening to something earlier, I can't remember what it was, but even like some sort of way you can also, I'm not a football coach, but, you know, making Serong, if he's getting tagged, go to Serong, okay, Serong, instead of getting, you know, trying to play your own game, how about you go and try tag Heaney or Warner yourself, etc. Like, there's ways to deal with it, and I have faith in the coaching team to maybe help him do so. But gee whiz, you're running out of time. This season's coming to the crunch point, and you can't just let one player get tagged and have that tag affect your team's results so big, especially in the midfield where obviously games are won and lost most of the time. But it'll be interesting to see. I don't know Hawthorn this week. Mitchell's tagged players a few times, so it'd be dumb not to try it again. Look, I hope we don't try and just do nothing again because, you know, Hawthorn's got a pretty dangerous team, and if they dominate us at clearance like Sydney did, I think we'll probably lose without being too negative.
Yeah, I think Sam Mitchell probably will tag Serong. I'm not sure if Finn McGuinness is in the team at the moment, but he's the guy that tends to do it. Yeah, look, we've got faith in Caleb Serong just sort of overcoming this because he's such a professional footballer, and you know, the bloke's sort of dedication to his process week in, week out is undeniable. So we've got faith he will overcome it. He's still a young midfielder, but it is probably concerning in the short term, considering we need to be playing finals. And you just mentioned you've got faith in our coaching staff to overturn that. Do we really have faith in the coaching staff? Because Justin Longmuir for the rest of this season is coaching for his job.
Yeah, he is. He is. I think he's applied a lot of pressure to himself taking that year-by-year contract thing because it's so easy to let go of him. And look, I think something like helping Serong break a tag could literally save his job because I think, you know, if Serong gets his average disposals and clearances on the weekend, I think we win the game. Like, yeah, I don't know. JL's under pressure, and I think he has to know that himself. And look, I don't think it's rocket science to help Serong break a tag, but it's a bit. It sort of reflects our team a bit how one player can be so important to our result because, you know, like if you correlate Serong underperforming and us losing, a lot of the time they go hand in hand. So look, the pressure should be on other people like Brayshaw and Bolton to step up when Serong's being tagged as well, not just Serong to try and break the tag. But yeah, I don't know what will happen this week. I'm actually a bit scared to see if we just try to do the exact same thing and it fails again. So yeah. It'll be interesting to watch that midfield battle, especially.
It is a bit worrying. What would you say JL's sort of pass mark is this year? Because we say we should make finals, but realistically, if we come 8th and go out first week, I don't really feel comfortable having the bloke at our club. And that being said, I don't want this to be a witch hunt on Justin Longmuir because we've just won 6 in a row and we have played some good football and there's clear belief within the playing group in his game plan, but belief within the playing group and belief within the higher ups of the club. 2 completely different things. What do you sort of see as a pass mark for JL?
Look, we're going to finish in the top 9. That's sort of certain. That's not a pass mark for mine. I think winning a finals game is, to be honest. And if you ask right now, do I see us winning a finals game? I probably would say no, but I do have faith that we could. But, you know, I don't know, mate. I think obviously our expectations are going to be different. The board's expectations are going to be different, etc., etc. But personally, I'd probably say winning a finals game would be what I'd expect at the minimum.
Yeah, I'm probably in the same boat as you. Like, I see us winning a final, but is it realistic at this point in time? It's a tough one. And even making finals, we're definitely the most vulnerable team out of the top 9 to drop out. Not many, you know, sort of punters at this stage of the season have us even, you know, climbing out of that sort of 9th, 8th region, which is a bit unfortunate, given, you know, the streak we were just on and, you know, the potential top 4 conversations. But I don't want to, you know, be chucking out cliches left, right, and center, but it is just all about taking it 1 week at a time because the games coming up are super, super tough and looking too far into the future is the worst thing you can do.
I think you almost have to finish in the top 6 to win a final as the Dockers, to be honest. Because if you say we scrape into 8th, then you're likely going to be playing probably either Hawthorn or the Bulldogs away in the first week of the finals, which is looking to the future quite a bit. But say that JL did have to win a final to keep his contract, which I'm just speculating. That's my opinion. But I reckon he's got a big job to get in a position to even do that. But, I have faith in him. We just won 6 in a row, as you said. We can't be too negative. But when you see simple things like a Serong being tagged, killing us that hard, it's like, come on, mate. It's not rocket science, you wouldn't think. But, we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. We've spoken about Serong, who's the main guy out of there. However, he's not the only bloke in our midfield. I thought there were some decent performances in there, despite us getting smashed, just sort of around the ground. I was really happy in particular with Neil Erasmus's first half.
Yep.
And I've been trying to give Raz and Matt Johnson some credit in the past few weeks, but Drewz has just been shutting me down at every possible instance. I try and give him credit. But I yet again thought they both had some really good games. I had a really good game on the weekend. And, they both sometimes do dumb things, but I think every player on the park on Sunday did a dumb thing. So you can't really be nitpicky with what was happening on the weekend. And I thought Raz and Johnson were two of our best out of there.
I thought our best point in the midfield, I reckon, was easily, which might be a bit controversial, but I thought Corey Wagner. Very, very good, mate. Very good. I thought he's had a few good games recently, but I think that'd be pretty close to his best game as a Docker, or in general, really. But I think he had 22 touches, 6 tackles, which I'll talk about in a second. He only had 2 clearances, but that's not his job. 450 metres gained, a goal assist. He didn't do much wrong, Wagner. And I think he was trying to play a little bit of a defensive role at times, but even so, he might not have done the greatest job defensively on Gould and Warner, but he contributed himself and got the ball himself, which a couple of other midfielders didn't do so well. So I thought Wagner was one of our better players on the weekend.
He certainly was. One thing I noticed about our CBA mix on the weekend was we had a few guys rolled through there. So Shea Bolton, Andy Brayshaw, Sean Darcy, Caleb Serong, Luke Jackson, Neil Erasmus, Corey Wagner, Jagger O'Meara, Matt Johnson. They were the guys that rolled through there. Now, no Nathan O'Driscoll did not get a single CBA. Now, whether this was just because of the one-on-one matchup he had with Goulden, or whether that's just maybe he's not in the midfield plans anymore, do you reckon we should read into that? Or do you reckon it's just a bit irrelevant? Because I think Noddy is definitely value to that sort of midfield mix. And I found it very interesting that he did not even get one CBA when we were getting smashed in there.
Well, he's a bigger body than Serong and Brayshaw and Bolton. So even like a bigger body aspect, I guess they're playing Jackson in there a bit. But yeah, even just a bigger body to try and stop the run of Heaney and Goulden and Warner out of stoppage, try and get his first hands on the ball, which he doesn't get much opportunity to. But even at WAFL level, he's a pretty good clearance player. And I agree. I don't know why he didn't get any CBAs. And look, you couldn't have done much worse than what was going on in the centre bounce. So yeah, it is interesting. But maybe because the fact, they dropped sharp, they're like, okay, Noddy, you're just playing as a straight wingman, like for like replacement. Just stay on the wing all day, mate. Running. I saw he ran our most distance on the ground, 15 kilometres, which was as you'd expect from him. But he literally was just on the wing, running up and down all day. And I thought he was okay. Far from our worst player.
Yeah, definitely. You just mentioned Jeremy Sharp there, and I sort of pondered the question on the fan cams after the game whether maybe he could have been recalled for the game on the weekend. He was the arguably best on last year at the SCG, and he plays the SCG really well. And he had 29 touches on the weekend. Obviously, WAFL level was very different to playing a seniors game at the SCG. But I just think team selection, we may have gone a little bit wrong. I don't want to continue a witch hunt on the coaches, but I just feel like there was so much that went wrong in the coach's box. Maybe Jeremy Sharp could have had an influence. And that just sort of ties in.
Did he tag Goulden last year in the same game, was it? I feel last year he nullified Goulden quite a bit.
He might have. I could not recall, to be honest. All I recall is Fife nullifying Heaney.
Yeah, that was... I'm pretty... I could be talking nonsense, but I feel like he played pretty good in that game last year, Sharp. But yeah, look, he was dropped for a reason. He didn't even... Because I think he was a carryover emergency last week, so he didn't even get a game in the WAFL, which probably was the whole point of dropping him, maybe to get some confidence back. But I wouldn't surprise me if he gets recalled next week. Well, this week, sorry. Wouldn't surprise me
he
at all.
Very well could. I'm not sure if we'll go with the 2 genuine wingers. We played one game this season with... No, we haven't. Or since Noddy has come back, we've played one game with 2 genuine wingers. So I'm not sure if that's really in Longmuir's vision. Sharp had some bad form leading up to Noddy coming back into the team. So yeah, I'm not sure whether Sharpie just needs a few weeks at WAFL level to dominate, which it looks like he's doing. He had 29 touches for Peel. But yeah, I'm not sure if he will get recalled anytime soon. However, I think it might be something to look into.
Just to go back on that point I made, I wasn't talking nonsense. Last year, he held Goulden to 20 touches while collecting 26 of his own. So, you look at that and go, Goulden's a pretty damaging player, and you've got someone who beat him fair and square last time they played. Maybe isn't the sole reason you recall him, but it's a bit of a question why he didn't play. But, can't change the past, I guess. He didn't do anything wrong at Peel, so maybe not this week. But if someone, that's the question I pose for you. If he was to come in, who do you take out, though?
That's the one, because Jager probably needs to come into the 22 now. He made a massive impact in the
he was good.
quarter and
Very
a half
good
that he played. So
I'm not sure, in my opinion.
He should have. I reckon that was a halftime substitution. I reckon that was the lever he had to pull. Absolutely.
Being
just
beaten
getting that big body.
Yep,
the experience it had to be injected in there at some point. I'm not sure who I'd take out for Jeremy Sharp. But I'm also not saying that Jeremy Sharp is a must-have in this Fremantle 23. No. Like, far from it. I'm just saying it would have been worth having a look maybe at the SCG. And it's obviously easier speaking in hindsight. I don't want to nitpick every single thing that went wrong in the coach's box or at the selection committee. But yeah, because at the end of the day, like, there were a lot of skill errors. There are a lot of simple things that went wrong. Like, you look back at the Fredericks misses, the Amos misses, Pat Voss missed an easy one, the Murphy Reid around the body set shot where he could have taken 30 off the clock. There were so many simple things that went wrong. Just quickly on Murphy Reid, I've just mentioned the one big blunder he had, which really would have gone in the games. Close on our terms. But he had a really, really good game, Murph. And there was just one sort of passage I look back on. It was the handball chain. There were a couple kicks in there, and he delivered it beautifully inside 50 to one of our forwards. And just that versatility of him sort of pushing up the ground. And it was a game where as we've mentioned about 10 times already, we got smashed at clearance. Isn't now the time to start experimenting? Murph in the midfield. He's a different sort of dynamic. We don't really have anyone like that in there at the moment. What do you reckon?
The problem with our midfield is we miss a big body, which is Hayden Young / Jager O'Meara. So if you're running a midfield of three of Reid, Brayshaw, and Serong, I'm worried you'll get bullied. But I think is there any player in the current team, not including Hayden Young, because he'd be my answer, who you feel more safe with the ball in their hands than Murphy Reid?
No, there isn't. Murphy Reid's the second best inside 50 kick in the comp. So
yeah, I think Hayden Young, if Hayden Young was playing, he'd be one, but I think Reid's two. If you could get him up the ground more, and actually he gets a lot of the ball, doesn't get a lot of the ball, but he gets enough of the ball. But if you can get him even more, and he's the one providing the entries inside 50, then licking my lips. But I think maybe maybe another pre-season, bulk up some more, work on your tanks some more, and maybe expose him. But even I think maybe short spurts towards the back end of the season could be a good idea. But I don't know. I'd love to see him get the ball more, and I think he eventually will. Is it too soon? Then I can't answer that question, but I hope it isn't, and I hope you do see him more in the midfield, getting his hands on the ball.
I just think it would have been worth seeing something different. Like, I agree. I think putting him in there with Serong and Brayshaw would get pantsed. But, Jackson rolls through there for a little bit. When Noddy rolls through there, if he does. When Hayden Young's back in the team. Like, if there's a bigger body in there, I think it's worth chucking Murphy in there for something a bit different, because it feels like the whole game just slows down around him. He's got the David Mundy trait where his decision-making, it feels like it's in 0.5 speed whenever he gets the ball. So I really feel like it'd be worth looking at something different in there, because the midfield is not working. It hasn't worked for 2 weeks, and I'm getting a bit scared that we're getting worked out.
Well, mate, I've taken our three biggest CBA attendances outside the ruckman this week in Brayshaw, Serong, and Bolton. I've compared it to theirs, Heaney, Goulden, and Warner. So Serong, Bolton, and Brayshaw had 10 score involvements in the game. Heaney, Goulden, and Warner, 23. So, it's just like our midfield, they can get the ball, and this is no knock on Serong and Brayshaw. It might sound like I'm targeting them, but they're not very damaging with the ball at times. And I think the likes of Murphy, Reid, and Hayden Young in there, once Young's back and whenever they decide it's time for Reid, I think you'll see a lot more score involvements from our midfield.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in the same boat. We need a damaging ball user out of there very, very quickly. And hopefully Hayden Young is an injection we can get back in there in the next couple of weeks.
What do you think about when he comes back? Obviously, he's had barely any football this season, and we're missing Walker. I don't know if we're missing. That's another thing about Peel form. I'm not sure how good Walker's going, and we're missing Simpson. What do you think of, say Young comes back at round 21, you just play him at halfback for the rest of the season, just to, it's less taxing role, so to speak, than playing in the midfield and more drive off halfback.
I feel like we spoke about this about 3 weeks ago, and I was sort of on board with this idea, but I've backflipped a little bit considering the last 2 weeks we've just been baggered at clearance, and we just need someone in there that can. No, he's not necessarily like a pristine ball winner, but what he can do out of there and the power he has, I think it's so crucial in the middle of the park. So I'm not against him playing spurts at halfback, and even half forward, because we know how good he is forward to center. But I'm not sure about just full on injecting him back as a halfback. I've shared the same view that maybe halfback was the sort of role for him a few weeks ago, but I think the last couple of weeks have completely changed my mind. We were just speaking about selection in the midfield because we are getting pants. I think we need to stop speaking about the midfield because we've spoken about us getting dominated at clearance enough.
Well, do we have? Before we move on, can we just talk about the ruckman quickly? Now, I do not want to sound like Kane Corns or anyone like that, but I had to. It's a bit damning, to be honest, this week, mate. Grundy, 20 disposals, 33 hit-outs, 1 goal, 12 clearances. Darcy and Jackson combined, 23 disposals, the same amount of hit-outs, 1 more goal, and 5 less clearances, being 7. Like, I thought Jackson versus Grundy when it was in the ruck, we lost the clearances 16-4. I think Darcy was a better ruckman this week. So anyone who says, Jackson when he's solo ruck, he's the best player in the league. Well, if you going off those stats, if Jackson was a solo ruck and if it continued the way it did, we would have lost the clearances 32-8. So I think Darcy was the better out of the two in the ruck this week. So yeah, I thought Jackson had an impact when he went forward, but in the ruck, I thought he was. I don't want to be too harsh, but not uncompetitive, but it was well beaten by Grundy in the ruck contest, so I thought.
Well, that sort of ties into my next point. Like, do we need to start having conversations about the forward structure? Because I agree, Sean Darcy had ascendancy. He didn't have ascendancy. Brodie Grundy dominated the game, but in terms of Darcy or Jackson, Darcy was certainly the better of the two in the middle of the park. And Jackson played very, very well forward to centre yet again. It's 2 games in a row now where Jackson's played some pretty bulk forward time. Jai Amos did not play very well. Pat Voss, he got subbed out. That sub discussion's a whole nother sort of conversation. But I think we need to take another look at our structure, because when Sean Darcy is having that much ascendancy out of the ruck compared to Jackson, it limits the versatility of our tools so much. Yeah. And it sort of ponders the question, do we need to go back to the 3-tool structure of Tracy, Jackson, and 1 of Voss or Amos?
Well, yeah, I would think that's the case, but I don't really want to try and be the one to decide who gets dropped because, either way there's going to be people upset. So, look, it's a good issue to have, but it's a hard decision to make. Like, who I think could be a solution to this problem? Either drop one of Tracy or not Tracy. Jesus, I'm sorry.
Mate, we are not dropping Josh Tracy.
Let me wash my mouth out.
That would be a huge selection decision.
Sorry. You drop one of Amos or Voss and you bring in Sturt. So when Jackson's rucking or playing on ball, you got somebody who's a hybrid forward. Now, Sturt, I think he made an okay return in the WAFL, but that was his first game. Did he even play in the preseason game? I'm not sure. But anyways, his first game in 4 months. It's his first game in 4 months. I think he was solid, and Peel Thunder's struggling, so I'm not sure how great he'll look at Peel, but he could be the sort of player to replace one of the 2 tools who I'm not even going to say who I think should be replaced. It's just a ridiculously hard call to make, but he could be a solution and someone who can play. He can play small. He's got a good enough leap on him to play tall. He could be the perfect fix to this solution. Maybe.
Yeah, you just mentioned Peel hasn't been very good. They only kicked 6 goals on the weekend, and Sam Sturt kicked 1 of those. So he's not getting necessarily great service to determine whether he's AFL ready. Maybe a week or so, or a week or 2 in the WAFL still until he comes back. But I agree. I'm a part of the Sam Sturt fan club. I sort of think he's the glue guy. He's the medium guy. And he sort of just brings everything together. And when we've got, I feel like our tools are pretty versatile considering their size, but they're not as versatile as what a Sam Sturt would be, who's a proper medium-sized forward and can play tall and can play small. And we've got no one of that mold that's been in the team all season. Down to availability, I've got no doubt Sturdy would have been in the team, but I agree. I think we need to inject him, and whether that's Amos or Voss who goes, it's certainly something we've got to look at.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. You don't have to answer it because I won't, but who would you drop, Amos or Voss?
Amos,
theoretically.
100%.
Okay.
100% straight away. I think it's pretty obvious. We've spoken about it for a while now on the pod, his spot in the team, and I've been the guy that stuck up for him, funnily enough. But I'm officially off him after the weekend. I love the guy. he's only 21. Tall forwards take so long to develop. Like, you even look Aaron Cadman at GWS, number 1 pick. He's still not really setting the league alight. Tall forwards take a while to develop. So I've got no doubt that he will be a player for this footy club. But there should be no fear in dropping the bloke down to the 2s for a little stint.
No.
He needs some confidence. And he needs to dominate down there for a bit.
Actually, I'm pretty sure I was at actually his last ever WAFL game where didn't he rupture his spleen or something? I was there. Yeah. That happened right in front of me. But hopefully, if he goes back down to the WAFL, he has a kinder experience than that. But yeah, I think either way, like if I had to guess, and this is not what I think should happen, I reckon Voss will get dropped. Which
I agree with you,
because I think Amos has more tickets in the bank, which you can probably argue that because of this season's form, but. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I didn't think Jeremy Sharp would ever be dropped, so now I believe that anyone's possible of being dropped by JL. I don't know if it will happen, but you've got to start looking at that fact and going, look, are we too tall? I think it's probably yes. Especially it got exposed a bit at the SCG. I think it's one of the smallest grounds in the AFL, and we look too tall. Because look, if you look at this statistic, mate, inside 50 tackles, Sydney 23, Fremantle 8. It's a damning statistic.
We've had that sort of statistic a few times this season. For some reason,
the tackle is tall.
Well, yeah, exactly. We started the season a bit smaller, but we've just sort of been hell-bent on this 3 tall structure, which I'm not saying hasn't worked for like a large portion of the season. But JL speaks about horses for courses that much with the ruck situation. It needs to be horses for courses with the forwards as well, because we're not selecting a team based off the matchup in front of us. We're selecting it based off form, which I sort of agree with, but I also don't. There needs to be more flexibility.
Don't get me wrong, Dudley, he's a fan favourite, but when Switkowski's back, I think you can swap that quite easily. Dudley, only the 1 tackle inside 50. If you combine Amos, Dudley, Voss, and Tracy, you've got 2 tackles. So, look, I understand that 3 of them are talls, but if you're going to pick tall forwards, you need to at least have some sort of faith in them applying pressure. And, yeah, it's a bad statistic and bad low pressure against a team like Sydney who have got good ball users all around the park. It's going to be hard to beat them.
I still think a guy like Isaiah Dudley, who is as good in front of goals as he is a hard bloke to drop. 100% agree Switter has to come back in. But I think if Sam Sturt comes in for one of our talls, I reckon we'd bring our pressure rating up a fair bit just because of his flexibility. And I think it would allow for a guy like Isaiah Dudley to stay in the team. Shea Bolton played a lot of midfield. He barely spent any time in the forward line. He was our top CA getter along with Andy Brayshaw. So, yeah, I'm not sure if that was just a case of where the game was at, but he only had 3 touches in the first half. Like, it wasn't necessarily working. I'm not sure what was happening there.
What danced me about Bolton's game was he had the most inside 50s in our team with 7 and only had 2 score involvements. So he was far from his greatest game, Bolton. He got the ball in dangerous places in the second half especially, but didn't really use it. So, look, if he gets the ball, if he has 7 inside 50s every week, I guarantee you he'll be getting a lot more than 2 score involvements on average. So it was just maybe a poor game by him. But if you're getting those looks every week, we will be scoring a lot of points because of it. So I think it's just a bit of a mulligan for Bolton. I thought he was terrible in the first half, but he worked into the game well. And I think if he just had a bit better ball use, we may have won that game.
Yeah, and you're going to get that with Shea, just the way he plays. He is a bit erratic and you're not going to get the great moments from him if you're not going to have these sorts of games as well. So, yeah, it's sort of just the ebbs and flows you're going to have to rub with Shea Bolton. I cannot quite believe he got a coach's vote over Errol Goulden. That was one of the more baffling things I've seen today.
Yeah, I'd love to know which coach gave it to him. But, yeah, just so back on the tackles inside 50, only 1 player had multiple, and it was Corey Wagner. So it's a poor effort all around from our forward line.
Absolutely. Wags wasn't even playing on the inside that much as well. He was out on the wing, and he must have been pushing up a fair bit because I saw him in the back pocket and the forward pocket.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I had one other stat I had to bring up. Out of the pressure acts on the ground, out of the top 11 pressure acts, we had 1 player inside the top 11. So yeah, just terrible pressure.
And who was that?
All around the ground, Brayshaw. Not even just inside 50, but around the whole ground. It was, pretty poor effort, which I don't know what you can put that down to. Like, it's not, you can't really blame the coach for that. Like, that's not really a coaching problem. He's not out there doing it. So that's a bit of you have to be better than that, especially against good sides. You can't be just letting them do what they want with minimal pressure.
I think we can speak about like all these stats and whatnot, and we can speak about the coach all we want, as we already have for the past half an hour. But I think it just comes down to the simple skill errors that we were making that we really shouldn't be making. Like we've won 6 in a row, but it felt like there was a bit of complacency in the first half that yes, we fixed in the second half, but it's pretty hard to come back when you're playing catch up the whole game against a really good team in Sydney. Their ladder position does not suggest where they are actually at. Like they had some really, really good players back in the team. Errol Golden played his best game all year. Or it's only his second game of the season, but he's still
Mills was very good.
Still played very well. Callum Mills, yet again. These guys are coming back and they're making Sydney a much better team. They were in the grand final last year. They were the best team by a long way for most of last year. And I think we were playing that version of Sydney. So it's definitely not panic stations. We lost by 11 points away from home against a very, very good Sydney outfit. It's just all about sort of our response on Saturday.
Well, as I said at the start, I feel like we should have lost by more. So the fact we got within 2 goals and we should have taken the lead within the last 10 minutes, it's a good effort. If we're going to play that poorly and just be beaten by that much, and that's a good effort. But the fact we lost when it was such an important game to win, it does sting quite a lot. But with all things being equal, it wasn't the worst loss we've had this year by far.
Absolutely. Definitely an honourable loss, which is something we were crying out for early in the season. Every loss felt like it was the end of the world, where this one certainly doesn't. It just stung for a bit after the game.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
just because of what it meant for our ladder position. That's why it stings.
It was an 8-pointer.
The effort sort of was... I sort of just criticised the pressure and tackles, but the effort wasn't our worst game by far.
Now there was one line which I wasn't too happy about on the weekend, Zach, and that was the back line. 2 of our most consistent guys down there this year, Alex Pearce and Brennan Cox. Now Moose has been a very consistent contributor whenever he's come in the team and hasn't really put a foot wrong, whereas Brennan Cox is shutting down the Oppo's best key forward week in, week out, and yet again he's had a mulligan against Sydney. So I'm not sure if it's just something he's got against the club, where he just has to let Joel Amati and Hannah McLean take advantage of him, or I'm not sure what's up with that. But our backs really were not at their best. Jordan Clark got shut down after having a career best game last week. What went wrong down there?
Mate, I wish I knew. Like, imagine if Brennan Cox went up against prime Buddy Franklin when he's playing for Sydney. He would have kicked 20 goals. Like, Cox has been very, very good this year. He's been consistent, but gee whiz, as you said, 2 games against Sydney, he's been horrible. I don't know. He just didn't. I can't give you an answer. I don't know if it's a mental thing. Like maybe he after that game, what happened when Amati kicked that goal on him late? He was like mentally like, oh God, can't do that again. I've got no idea, but I've got no excuse for him because he's actually been solid this season. But Clark, Braden Campbell had him in his back pocket. That was just I don't know. Clark's copped a few tags recently, but he was he wasn't ineffective, but compared to his recent games, he was poor. So I don't know. Cox, you can probably just say it's against Sydney once again. Let it be. Clark, I back him into fight back this weekend.
If he played against Buddy at Hawthorn, he would have kept him goalless. But if it was against Sydney, Buddy's kicking 20. And I'm not sure why, but it must be a mental thing because I'm not sure what's happening there. Now, as I just mentioned, Jordan Clark got shut down, and it's sort of been a narrative this season about stop Serong, stop Freo. But is there now another blueprint that if you stop Clark, you stop Freo? Because our halfback rebound was just completely shut out.
Well, that's because Clark's our only rebounder, really. You've got no Walker, you've got no Simpson, Young maybe, but just Walker and Simpson. Simpson, he played, 2 games? He looks very, very promising, and Walker, we know what he offers to the table, and even though he may turn it over frequently, at least he has some dare and dash, and that's the only person in our team with anything like that is Clark. So if you stop Clark, our ball movement did look quite terrible from backline to our midfield to attack. Just Clark wasn't breaking lines. He was just literally being blanketed the entire game, which full credit Braden Campbell. He beat him fair and square.
Yep. I think Cooper Simpson is a walk-up straight back into this team as soon as he's back from injury. We need another line breaker and another sort of quarterback very, very quickly because, sort of our ball movement from the back half has just gone in the bin in the past couple of weeks in particular. Like, as we mentioned, we've won 6 in a row, but there has been a bit of papering over the cracks in the last 2 wins. So it sort of doesn't feel like this is our first loss in 7 weeks or whatever. It sort of feels like we're finally getting the result we deserve, despite the performance not being disastrous.
What would you say so far this year has been our most complete performance? I feel a lot of them, even wins, you can go, even in a lot of the wins, you can go, yeah, this was like, we got lucky here, we weren't good there. Like, I don't know if we've played a complete game this year, to be honest.
No, we definitely have. First half against the
I think
Bulldogs
the
was
Giants, the
fantastic, but
closest
we
is
fell
probably
off in the second half.
the Giants game's probably the closest for mine, I
Yeah.
reckon. The Bulldogs game, you're right, we fell off. So that's not really a complete game. I mean,
No,
Richmond,
I agree.
but
I think the Giants
we
game.
didn't.
Richmond's Richmond. Like you can barely count that. And also, we weren't really on top for
No.
stages of that first half either. So yeah, I'd agree. I think it was the Giants game that was the most complete, and I think that was a really good performance. But it was sort of led by some Shea Bolton magic, some Luke Jackson magic. So I don't know. It's hard to say our most complete performance, but as long as we start to get them towards the back end of the year, then yeah, I'm not sure.
If we can only agree on one complete performance out of how many wins is it? 10? 11? 10 or 11?
There have been a lot of sort of like mature performances though. Like there hasn't necessarily been a lot of dominance, but I feel like a couple of the wins we've had lately have been very mature, and they're wins we wouldn't have had in previous years. So there's definite growth there. It's just a bit of a shame that the way the AFL is shaping up this season, the ladder position is sort of, holding us out of the 8 despite, our record, being 10 and 6.
I think we had the same record this time last year. We were in the top 4. Same record
exactly.
this time last year.
So it's crazy how the competition sort of changes year in, year out. Talking of changing, I'm not sure what segue this is, but we're moving into the game on Saturday night. Hawthorn, a big sort of, it's an 8-pointer, I'll be honest, for both teams. Hawthorn fans, I've been reading on Twitter, they're a bit nervous. They know the importance of this game. There was a bit of conversation about resting Jack Gunston, and that got shut down pretty quickly because of how important this is for them as well. Just everyone in sort of the bottom half of the top 8, well, you say the bottom half, but third to ninth are really all in the same position, basically. So this is a huge game. Fremantle Hawthorn. I think, despite us not really being on Broadway too much, I think the Adam Papali'i broadcast will be getting some national attention on Saturday, which is good to see. How do you see this game shaping up? Because we've been out-coached in the past couple of weeks, and JL's got a bit to answer for.
I think either way, it would be an under 2-goal game. Either way, I reckon. I think it would be a very contested, tight game. With Hawthorn do like playing risky footy and taking the game on, but I reckon this will be a game where both teams know how important it is, and you could see a lot of like defensive type footy, a bit of a grind. I don't know the weather this weekend, but if it's raining, that could even add to the cause more. But I think this will be like a scrappy arm wrestle sort of game, and it's hard to tip either way. It's hard to tip either team with much confidence, to be honest. Like, I hope we win, but I could not look you in the face and say I'm confident we'll win. Like, we need to win. I'd say it's a 12-pointer, not even an 8-pointer. If we lose this, it's almost season over. As drastic as that sounds, like, then we'll be a game and a lot of percent out of the top 8. So look, we need to win. I'm not confident, but I'm hopeful because we just won 6 in a row prior to this game. We weren't terrible on the weekend, so I got faith, but gee whiz, it's a big game.
Yeah, season over might be a bit drastic, but it will certainly be the most on the back foot we've been all season, considering our ladder position and where we're at in the season. I'm not sure, there are a lot of top 8 teams sort of playing each other this round, so hopefully that plays into our favour, but we've just got to focus on the things we can control, and that is the game on Saturday against Hawthorn. Now, I just mentioned JL getting out-coached, and I don't want to make this all about JL, but Ross Lyon has gone a hold of him twice this season. Last week he did. Luckily, we won the game by pulling through in the 4th. And Dean Cox, a first-year coach, got a hold of him on Sunday. Now, Sam Mitchell is a very, very talented coach, and the method in the past couple of weeks has just been push extra numbers to the back of the stoppage and sort of dominate Freo out of the centre square, and you've won the game. Look, St Kilda was a bit of a different case because I reckon Ross basically coached to win. It was our personnel that got us over the line. Do you reckon Sam Mitchell's going to do the same thing? And what do you think JL does to combat that?
Do I think he does the same thing? Yes. Do I know what JL does to compensate it? No, couldn't tell you. No idea what he will do, which is probably not a good thing, but literally have no idea what he will do. The same things happen. Same things happened 3 times this year now. Twice against the Saints and Sydney. Well, actually, Sydney didn't really do it, but more so just taking out Strong and Clark. It's happened 3 times now, and surely that's enough sample size to be able to identify some sort of fix. And because I expect Hawthorn will go at Serong, maybe Clark, who knows, but they'll definitely go at Serong. I hope to see some sort of attempt to try and break it this time. I'm not doubting Strong's not trying to break it, but even just some help from his teammates, it'll do my head in if Serong getting tagged out the game and nothing different from last week's happening to try to stop that.
I was watching Will Schofield on Shelter Footy Cast today,
So was
and
I.
he was saying that we need some larrikins to just get ripped into the tagger. Like, why are we being like? It was Caleb Serong trying to break the tag. It wasn't the team trying to break the tag. It was really, really frustrating. Like, Pat Voss feels like the only bloke that's going to go and lay a body, and he's in the forward line.
Yeah.
So can we have some mongrels in the midfield to try and just rip off whoever's trying to stop our best player, because we are getting beaten in our own head at the moment, and it's so frustrating.
If I had to, this is like a bit of a weird question, but besides Patrick Voss, how many of our players could you see going out and shirt fronting someone tagging Serong?
Luke Ryan probably could, I think.
I reckon Clark could, but the problem is all the players I can think of, none of them are midfielders. None of them.
Yeah. Geordie Clark got 1 CBA last week, so maybe he counts. Yeah. But I don't think I would classify him as a midfielder. I'm not sure. Like, Lukey would, Geordie, Vossi, but he's in the forward line.
Tracy would.
He would. He's an angry man on the field.
I heard Scotty say that as well, and I agree with him. But it's good. One thing to agree, it's another thing to believe will actually happen, which I do not believe that will happen. Yeah, you just can't do the same. I know I keep saying it, but if we do the same thing again and expect different results, it's the first sign of insanity, to quote somebody. Don't know who made that quote, but just please, for the love of God, do not repeat the same tactics to try and win the midfield battle when we're getting dominated.
This game coming up is sort of giving me shades of the Adelaide game early this year. We came off a pretty annoying loss, and I actually saw strong resemblance to that game on the weekend, the Melbourne game early this season. And coming off the back of the Melbourne game was that Adelaide game. It was a good team at home, and we sort of just got on top of them in areas where the opposition tends to be really strong. So I'm hoping that's the sort of response we see. That being said, the week after the Adelaide game was the St Kilda game, and next week we've got Collingwood. So I'm not saying that a 12-goal loss is going to happen next week, but if history repeats itself. But yeah, we've just got to get on top of areas where Hawthorn tend to excel. They love a sort of a chaotic game. Their smalls really tend to prey on.
I was going to ask you, I didn't know how much you want to talk about the game, but about those small forwards, they got Watson, they got Ginnivan, and they got Dylan Moore.
Yep.
Who mans them?
Well, Brandon Walker, I think, might now have to come back in for a lockdown role. I think Carl Warner did a fairly good job on Papley when Papley played on the weekend. But I think Carl needs to play, and I think Brandon Walker needs to play. Dylan Moore sort of pushes up into stoppages a little bit, so that's probably a harder one. I'd maybe go Jordan Clark for that one. But yeah, they're a very, very difficult forward line to sort of navigate. They've got about 5 key forwards banging the door down at the moment. So whoever they go with in that department, who knows? Like when you've got Mitch Lewis and Cal Shadira, the twos, you're going pretty well. So yeah, it's certainly a difficult one. But I think Brandon Walker's a guy that we have to see reinstaggled into the team this week.
I don't know who Walker was playing on the WAFL, but Sam Van Diemen, East Perth small forward. I'm not sure Walker was playing on him, but he went for 15 touches and 2 goals on the weekend. So I hope Walker wasn't playing on him. I didn't watch any of the game. I hope he wasn't, but I think Walker. We're talking about we need more dare of half back, but I think this week we need some defensive, like small defenders, because Hawthorn's probably got the best small forward trio in the league, and we're going to go in there with Banfield, Clark, who can defend pretty well, but I think Walker's a better defender than Clark. But I think, I'd be petrified if we've got Warner, Banfield, and Clark lining up against Ginnivan, Moore, and Watson. Yeah.
I think we need to make this sort of a contested scrap, which is what opposition coaches have done to us in the last couple of weeks. But I think this week it actually suits us because our midfield, or all things said, on paper, should smash their midfield. Their midfield, especially without Will Day, is not very good. If they make it an open-ended, end-to-end, just chaotic sort of game, Hawthorn will feast. And that's just the way they like to play. So we need to make this a contested game, and we need to beat them in those areas. Otherwise, I have the feeling Hawthorn could put a number on us. I think it's a 50-50 game, though, and it just depends on if we can get the game on our terms and if we can do that from the get-go.
Oh, you can often tell the Dockers how we start, how we end up going. Besides the St Kilda game, which obviously we flipped that a bit, but Yeah, mate, I agree. I don't know. Like, I think just need to go back to basics. Win clearances, and I think with win clearances, that's as most teams are. That's a long way to go to winning the game. And as you said, midfield on paper should be able to dominate the Hawks midfield, but you take Serong out of it, and it seems like a whole other rest of our midfield stops functioning. So look, on paper, we should win the midfield battle. I think our forward line, their defence. I think we're talking about dropping the 3 tools, but they've got Sicily, they've got Barris, they've got Battle. So maybe you keep with the 3 tools one more week just to try and combat that.
I don't think Sturdy was ever going to come back in straight away. So I think we will sort of stick with the 3 tools. But yeah, I
make
think
them all accountable. Sicily likes to play spare, Battle likes to play spare. Make them all accountable. Then that evens up because their backline's pretty damn good on paper. But if you can at least make them accountable, make them all take somebody, then who knows? It could be. Yeah, it should be a good game, mate. I'm looking forward to it. I might not be enjoying it halfway through it, but if I was a mutual supporter, I'd be looking forward to this game because on paper it looks like it could be a real tussle.
Absolutely. This is our biggest game of the season today. Absolutely. It's an 8-pointer. This is a season definer. And this is a game where it's basically going to determine if we're still right in the mix of playing finals footy or not. So I'm very, very keen for Saturday night. It's a disappointing loss we had on the weekend, but we've got to put it past us because it's a 6-day turnaround and we've got to put all our focus on the Hawks. Thank you, Zach, for joining me today on the podcast. I'm not sure if you'll see him again in the next few weeks. Drewz is away for 5-6 weeks, so I'm sure you will be back at some stage. But thanks for joining me.
No worries, mate. Anytime.
Thank you all for watching. If you haven't already, leave a 5-star rating on Spotify. Hit a like on YouTube. We're very close to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. It would mean the world if you haven't already to hit that red subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Up the Dockers, and we'll see you next time.